Hello everyone and welcome. Do you like sad revenge stories? How about badass female protagonists? How about sequels? I'm Mike and this is Mike's After Action Reviews, and this is the rapid action review for The Last of Us Part 2 Ghost of Yōtei. Alright guys, so this is a rapid action review, and as with all rapid action reviews, we're going to be cutting out some stuff that we normally go over in our after action reviews, and I am here and I have my notes, so I'm going to be going over those extensively as well. So starting off with production, Ghost of Yōtei initially released on October 2nd, 2025 to the PlayStation. It was developed by Sucker Punch Productions and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and the music was by Wataru Hokoyama. So moving on to the game's plot summary, the game is set in Japan in 1603, over 300 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima on the island of Ezo. You play as Atsu, a warrior returning home to avenge her family after having left as a child when your loved ones were massacred by outlaws known as the Yōtei 6. We're going to get into some stuff with the story. That actually is a very, very good summary of the plot of everything going on here without spoiling everything. So let's hop right in here to our final statement and review score, starting with our sustains and improves. So, starting with our sustains, our first sustain. The combat mechanics. The combat mechanics in this game are basically the same as the first one with a slight caveat. Stances from the first game where you use, Jin only uses a katana and then switches stances to defeat different types of enemies. Those have been traded off now for different weapons that you'll be using. But it's only an aesthetic change. So, for instance, in the first game, you'd switch to like wind stance to fight enemies who had spears. In this game, you use the dual katanas. Same idea, it's a rock, paper, scissors type of gameplay here. The only real change that they made here is that they got rid of a few of the secondary weapons, my favorite of which being the blowgun, which allowed you to poison enemies, and also hit them with berserk darts that made them go crazy and fight their own allies. The other sustain, so this is our second sustain, is the coin game. I really liked this minigame. I thought it was a great addition. It's one of those things where you look back at the first game and you say, man, if they had had the coin game, that would have been a nice addition. So I'm really liking this in the series. It's a fun way to make money, and it actually is challenging in itself. It's basically like a coin version of the game Marbles. So you flick the marbles. You hit a marble. If you knock it out of the ring, then you lose a point and your opponent can take a turn. If you hit it without knocking it out of the ring, you get to keep the marble. If you hit another marble, it's your opponent's turn and they get a point. Okay, and it's the same thing here, but it's just with coins. I really like that. That was pretty fun. So that's what we've got for sustains, and that kind of tells you something, because now we're going to be getting into improves. So the first improve, and one of the biggest ones, is that the story here is not interesting. There's no major hook. So in the first game is less personal than this one, because instead of just being about a personal revenge story or a personal objective of Jin Sakai, the protagonist, it's about defending the island of Tsushima from a Mongol invasion. Here there is no Mongol invasion. This is just about the main character and her personal journey, and the problem with it is that Atsu, the main character, is not interesting. Plus there's also some nonsensical stuff that I don't want to get into because I don't want to spoil it for you, but the story, it's not interesting, the main character's not interesting, and there's also going to be some stuff that a lot of people are going to be like, why did they do that? That just is dumb. Our second improve is the grindy, repetitive, uninteresting open world, and it's actually really interesting because the developer said that they wanted to make this less grindy and repetitive than the first game, but actually this is a lot like a Ubisoft game. There's all these points that you're going to pinball yourself in between on your way to different objectives or different areas, as you move through the game, and it's just very repetitive and very grindy, and yeah, it's completely not true. This is way more grindy than the first game. A big part of it is that the side content is not out of the way. So there is so much side content, so densely packed together in this game that if you were to move in a straight line from your main story objectives in between them, you would like literally walk right past side activities and content, which kind of sucks for me because it creates this thing in your mind where you're like, oh, it's right there, I should definitely go get it. A good illustration of this, and I'll put the map up so maybe you guys can see, but it's if you're standing like next to a bamboo strike and you look around, within vision range of your character, you know, basically like a stone's throw, there'll be like 2 or 3 other objectives, and then within each of those it's 2 or 3 of objectives. And while this got to be so prevalent that when I was live streaming this game, I literally said multiple times, this should be called side content the game. So much of this is very repetitive, grindy side content, and you're going to have to basically actively ignore it or avoid it in order to not get that feeling of, well, I'm walking right past it, I should complete it. I was very disappointed in that. And then the third improve, which kind of goes into some other things, and we'll talk about that here, but the side characters are bland and are developed either poorly or not at all. So the first game side characters all had their own side missions, and they were like the best that I've ever seen in gaming, really. They had their own complete stories with interesting story arcs. The characters were developed and they had their own... Basically, it made the world feel like it was lived in even if you weren't playing it, and it was even complete with their own cutscenes and everything. It was basically their own little campaigns, and they were all optional missions that you did not have to complete. And that is what filled out a lot of the side content from the first game. So if you look at the number of hours it takes to complete the side content in this game, they're about the same. But the problem with it is, in this game, it's move from this point on the map to that point on the map, complete a short objective, move to the next one, complete a short objective, move to the next one, and complete a short objective. In that game, it was you'd meet a guy, he'd tell you a story about his lost granddaughter, whatever, and then it would be this big, long story arc over the course of the entire game, and it was really fun. You were endeared to the characters, and it was a really good time. Here you just don't have that, and so it's extremely disappointing. Basically what you have here is you'll meet a character, and you'll do a few missions. Like, you'll meet the blacksmith. You'll do a few missions for the blacksmith, and then after that he'll become a vendor for you, and that is all the interactions you're going to have with him. There are very few side characters that are not like that. The few side characters that you do get that are developed, I don't think are developed very well anywhere near like the first game, and I keep comparing it to the first game because it's the closest thing we have to this game. But just like in general in open world games like this, even an RPG, action adventure RPGs and stuff, this just wasn't it. This was done very bland. It wasn't the most awful thing, but it was just very, very bland. Basically, you do the mission, then you get a new vendor. The characters that you do meet, the development that they have, some of that is, again, like I said before, and I don't want to spoil, a little bit nonsensical, and it was actually kind of a little irritating. Yes, I don't want to spoil it. But, okay, so then, so those are my improves. Let's get into my final statement so I can wrap it all up for you and maybe try to give you a little bit more clarity, because I know some of that without spoiling things is a little hard to understand. Basically, guys, this is... As I said in my intro, this is The Last of Us 2, The Last of Us Part 2, Part 2. It's not as bad or as controversial as The Last of Us Part 2 was when it came out, but it's a microcosm of, it has all of the same issues, but to a lesser extent, but to, in my opinion, an equal amount of disappointedness. Okay, an equal amount of disappointment. So think about it. Before The Last of Us Part 2 came out, there was a huge controversy. Before this game, there was a huge controversy about stuff that wasn't actually really the game. It was like the development. In The Last of Us, they had this really great story. In Ghost of Tsushima, they had a really great story. In The Last of Us Part 2, they had a story that everybody said was the weak part that sucked. And in this game, everybody is saying that the story sucks, or at least isn't as good as the first one. In The Last of Us, you had really great gameplay. In Ghost of Tsushima, you had really great gameplay. In this game, everybody's saying that the gameplay is either the same or disappointingly the same, or maybe a little less than the first game. In The Last of Us Part 2, they said the gameplay was about the same. So the two games are like parallels of each other here of these two different studios, which is extremely disappointing because this game had so much potential to do something really good. A lot of people wanted The Last of Us Part 2 to be about Joel and Ellie. People wanted Ghost of Yōtei, basically the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, to be about Jin Sakai, which apparently originally was, but instead they decided to give you to the female character who's going to go on a revenge quest, which again is just like The Last of Us Part 2. You see the parallels I'm drawing here? Yes, this is what I'm getting at. Basically, this game is the same as Ghost of Yōtei, but slightly worse in the way that it plays mechanically and the story. And then the big turd on top of the already, crap cake here is, the little turd cherry on top of the crap cake here is the open world is much, much more bland and tedious to play through, and because of than the first game, and because of that, I've got to give this one a below average. The game, I would say that with the mechanics, if it was a shorter game, I mean, this game is long. It's not like 100 hours or whatever, but it's not 10 hours. It's not 15 hours or less. This is like a 20, 30, 40-hour game, depending on how much you do. Playing through the open world, getting interrupted all the time on your way to missions by side content that's very repetitive and bland, it makes the game very tedious. And the longer you play it, the harder it is to play and the more boring it gets. And boring is not fun. And so that basically, instead of being even a mid-game, I've got to give it a below average. I know that this is going to be a controversial one, so let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. That's all I've got, guys. I do want to thank you all for watching and just say God bless you all and have a good day. Don't forget to check me out on Twitch and join the Discord where you can voice chat with me while I live stream and you won't be recorded or anything on YouTube and Twitch, so that's pretty cool. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. If you like to read, you can see my after action reports on my blog. And if you are interested, you can get some merch from my spring store. The links for everything are in the description below.